The two most enduring and common questions throughout civilization are, what is the meaning of life? And how can I decide on my research question or topic? And I'll now answer one of these questions, but perhaps not the question in which you're really most interested. That is, I'll now help you determine your research question or topic for an assignment. In essence, to develop a research question, you need to complete two main phases. Now, the first phase is simple. You merely need to locate and skim abstracts or scientific papers from your favourite scientific journals or websites. Now, the best journals include periodicals like Psychological Science, the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, the Journal of Happiness Studies, Motivation and Emotion, Journal of Applied Psychology, and so forth. Then you merely identify between maybe, say, 2 and 5 of these studies that you could extend or you'd like to extend in some way in the future. The second phase is slightly more challenging. You now need to extend or refine this study. Basically, you can identify causes of the independent variable, consequences of the dependent variable, mediators or moderators. Now, hopefully that sentence was completely nonsensical, because otherwise you must be some sort of genius. So let me explain these approaches with examples. So to illustrate, consider the summary that's summarised in this slide. This study shows that after people contemplate how they could cheat on a task, they actually solve problems more creatively. That is, thoughts about cheating enhance creativity. So I'll use this example to introduce the term independent variable and dependent variable. So in this example, what's the independent variable and what's the dependent variable? The independent variable is the cause and the dependent variable is the outcome. In this example, cheating causes changes in creativity, so cheating is the cause or independent variable, whereas creativity is the outcome or dependent variable, so-called because the variable is dependent on the cause. Creativity is dependent on cheating. So now that you can distinguish the independent variable from the dependent variable, we can now discuss how to identify causes of the independent variable, consequences of the dependent variable, mediators or moderators. So first, you should brainstorm possible causes of the independent variable. In this instance, cheating. That is, what circumstances or characteristics could encourage people to cheat? Perhaps the degree to which a workplace is competitive could encourage people to cheat. So how could you utilise this information to extend this study? Perhaps your research could examine whether a competitive workplace promotes cheating and thus improves creativity. So that is, you would measure and assess the extent to which various workplaces are competitive, whether the people think about cheating, and their level of creativity. And ultimately, this study would assess whether competitive workplaces are actually more creative in the end. Second, you should brainstorm some consequences of the dependent variable. That is, what is the effect of improvement in creativity? For example, creativity might enhance the profitability of workplaces. Perhaps your research could examine whether thoughts about cheating promote creativity and thus enhance profitability. You would thus assess thoughts about cheating, creativity in people, and the profit of various firms. And ultimately, this study would assess whether thoughts about cheating actually improve profit in organisations. Third, you could brainstorm a concept called mediators. Now, mediators explain why the independent variable and dependent variable are related. So rather than define mediators, I'll provide an example. So perhaps when individuals contemplate cheating, then consequently they don't feel the need to conform, and hence they can behave more uniquely and creatively. So in your research, you assess whether people experience thoughts about cheating, whether they experience the need to conform, in this case called the mediator, and their creativity. Ultimately, this study would assess why thoughts about cheating enhance creativity. And that could be important for future recommendations. Finally, you could brainstorm possible moderators. Now, moderators are any variables that affect the degree to which the independent variable and dependent variable are related, or they affect whether or not the independent variable and dependent variable are related. So perhaps, for example, in collectivist nations that really value groups and harmony, thoughts about cheating actually don't promote creativity because actually individuals prefer to conform. So although this reasoning is not particularly solid, in your research you could measure and assess thoughts about cheating, the creativity of individuals and the nation in which they live. And ultimately this study would identify instances in which thoughts about cheating don't enhance creativity or do enhance creativity. So I've now identified 4 approaches you can utilise to extend past studies. But I've not really clarified how to brainstorm to identify these causes of independent variables, consequences of dependent variables, mediators or moderators. But hopefully the other papers you have read or skimmed also just provide some ideas quite naturally. That is, when skimming other papers, you should record measures or variables that you might like to utilise. And these measures or variables could help you brainstorm solutions to those questions.